Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how I make this matching face mask and headband from scratch. So you will need some fabric for your outer shell, some lining, some fusing, some fabric scissors, some elastic, some nose wire if you choose to use it, some buttons, tape measure pins and your pattern piece. I'm just going to start off by pre-shrinking this fabric by going over it with the iron. Some people choose not to pre-shrink, but I think it is always important to pre-shrink your fabric first before you start doing anything. I'm then going to just place my pattern piece very efficiently. I do not want to be wasting any fabric at this time, so I just do it very carefully so we can get as many masks out of this piece of fabric as possible. So I cut one pair in the main fabric. I then go ahead and cut another pair in this pattern piece out in the lining, and then I'm also going to cut one more pair out in the fusing or interfacing, if that's what you call it. After cutting out those pieces, I head over to the ironing board and I fuse each piece of interfacing to each piece of the outer fabric for 15 seconds. This just acts as a filter for a bit of extra protection, and it also provides a bit more structure to the face mask. And then after that I pin both curved edges and I head over to the sewing machine and stitch the curved edge together. If I was bulk cutting these, I would have fused the fabric first and then cut multiple pieces out afterwards, but for the sake of showing you an example, I just do it like this. Then I go ahead and I just finger press out all of the seam allowances on the inside just to give that nice curve shape, and then I do the same thing on the lining. Here I am just finger pressing the seams open, and then I am going to cut off that excess fabric so we don't have bulk around our faces, and clip the inside to create ease around the curve and flip it over to the correct side, and then I do the same thing to the lining. I measure out 6.5 inches of elastic and then use my notches that I created to pin them in place ready for sewing on the right side of the lining. After pinning, I then just go ahead and stitch each of these into place. I do go back and forth over these a few times just to make sure that that stitch is strong and the elastic does not come out. Here I am going to put the right sides of the outer fabric and the lining together, and I'm going to pin all the way around, making sure that I trap the elastic on the inside, not on the outside. It has to be on the inside. I pin all the way around. I make sure I leave an opening just at the bottom of the face mask that I can pull that all through at the end, and then I go ahead and stitch, and then when I get to a corner I make sure I lift my foot on the machine, I turn it, and then I keep stitching so that I don't have to break that stitch. Here I'm just snipping off the corners of the excess fabric that I don't need. Again, it just reduces bulk and makes sure that we will have nice sharp corners when I do turn this mask inside out. When I do this, I make sure that I'm careful not to snip off any elastic when I do it. Then I just take this over to the ironing board and I press all of the seams out with the iron. Ironing the seams open is what will ensure that I will get a nice crisp finish when I turn this inside out. Using the opening that I have left on the bottom of the mask, I am just going to turn the mask through onto the right side, and as you can see we have a mask that is nearly finished. So to do this properly, all I am going to do is give this a good press to make sure it's got a nice finish, and then I am going to take the end of a spoon, you can use the end of a fork or you can use your scissors, and just push through those corners just to make sure that they are nice and sharp so that when they sit on the face they will be nice and flat. Now I am just folding in the seam allowance and giving that a good press so that I can just go ahead and do that finishing top stitch. So now I'm just going to top stitch and close this opening, and you can, if you choose to, stitch all the way around the mask just to reinforce it, but I think it's reinforced enough so I'm not going to. And this is our finished mask. it looks fab. And now I'm going to move over to how I make the headband. To make the headband, I cut out 2 strips of fabric. One strip measures 42 centimeters by 10 centimeters and the smaller strip is 21.5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. I then fold these in half, press them, and then I use a 1 centimeter seam allowance to sew all the way along each of them, and I do the same for the smaller strip as well. After sewing the seam allowance, I turn both of these through. It's a bit tricky, but just turn both of them through, and then after I've done this, I head over to the iron to press them flat to make sure that we can get that nice crisp finish. I then cut a piece of elastic that is 1 inch shorter than the shorter piece of the headband, and then I use a safety pin to just pull that through, and doing this is what's going to make this piece of fabric stretchy so that when I put the headband on, it will go over my head with ease and I won't have any problems doing that. After I've done that, I then just use a secure stitch to secure both ends of this in place so that it doesn't move or the gathers don't come out. I place the end of the back of the headband into the opening of the larger piece of fabric and then just stitch that in place, and then do the same with the other side. Here I'm just adding buttons to the side of the headband because I know that wearing elastic behind the ears can hurt sometimes, so this is just another option for you to put the elastic around the buttons. And this is the finished product. I love it, I love the colours, and I really think it suits me. I also decided to go ahead and make a few more masks in different colourways and add this necktie just in case people don't want to wear the elastic around their ears. They have the option to loop the necktie through the elastic and then tie it around their neck for a more comfortable fit. And that's it. Thank you for joining me, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.